everybody. I'm glad you're here today. I'm going to get right to it. I have two dreams that my father had on October 17th, 2022 and October 19th, 2022. These two dreams go together. And then I have a word I want to bring also that the Father gave me on October 12th. So all of these things kind of happened, well, they did. They all happened in the same day's time span. I was in prayer before I began this video because I don't want this to go too long. So I'm going to get right to it. I don't think there's really any backstory other than these dreams are not meant to replace what's in the Bible. They are not meant to trump what the gospel message. Everything we do needs to focus on Jesus and what he did for us on the cross. And he gives us dreams. I believe that God talks to us in dreams, as well as many other ways. For some reason, my 81-year-old father is getting dreams that I think are from God. Many of them warn us. These two particular dreams, there is an element of warning, there is an element of hope, and there is an element of, man, you better be at your sharpest right now as a believer. My dog in the background may join us from time to time, Chloe, but anyway, just ignore her if she happens to walk by. All right, let's start October 17th. Father, bless this. October 17th, 2022. This is what my father dreamt. He was in a lobby of a hotel, and there was a guy with him, and there was a group of dignitaries in the lobby, and my dad and this guy walked by these dignitaries, and there was a woman in that group, and she asked my dad, "How is the wheat crop in your area doing? How is the wheat crop in your area doing?" And my dad stopped, and he went about like this. He went, that it was about that high. That's what he indicated. And then the dream kind of changed, not really, but the guy with him said, "Let's go get a cup of coffee." They're in the hotel, and my dad said, okay. So they went to like a concession stand, a concession area. It was a self-serve kind of coffee area, and they got a coffee, and the guy went in front of my dad and went on and sat down with the coffee. Then, so my dad thought, oh, okay, I guess I'll be paying for this coffee with my own money. So then he was able to get his coffee, and when it came time to pay at the counter, he was looking for his money. He found it in his other pocket, and he pulled out his wallet, and he had a $10 bill. And he gave it to the woman, and she just gave him some change back, no bills. And my dad was waiting for the bills, and he said, well, how much did that cost? And she said $4.25. And my dad said, I gave you a $10 bill. And she said, no, you gave me a $2 bill. And she had it in the register. And my dad looked in his wallet, and there was the $10 bill in his wallet. The manager came, and she said, do we have a problem here? And what the manager decided to do was take my dad's name and contact information, and she said, if we have extra overage at the end of the day, we'll call you. So my dad took the coffee and went to where this guy was sitting that he'd been with at the beginning of the dream. But there were 3 other men sitting with him. And my dad, he knew them. They were familiar, but he did not know their names. He could not recall their names. But they expected him to know them. So my dad asked, are you with the group in the lobby? And they said, yes, we're part of that meeting. the lobby group got up and were leaving. And my dad said, I guess you have to go now. And they said, no, we're not part of that group. So they said, we're part of that meeting, but we're not part of that group. And my dad said, do you need a place to stay? You can have my room. And they said, okay. They took elevators to my dad's hotel room. And one of the men, when they got in there, one of the men said, I need your help to know how to use this in my business. And he like held up two objects. They were like bars of metal bars or something like that. And the guy said, I know you know what I'm talking about. And my dad said, I've never had any dealings in that area. The three men sat down in three chairs. My dad went and opened up the curtain to let in the light, and then he sat down in a folding chair with them, in front of them. And my dad said, I know why you accepted my invitation to come to my room. I know that you do not feel a part, you feel less than, smaller than that group in the lobby without purpose, like not bigwigs. That's what he said to them. I know that you don't feel a part of that group. You feel smaller than them, like without a purpose. Then the phone rang, and it was Joe, a guy named Joe. And Joe said, I'm in your area and I need you to place orders for all your group. And my dad said, what group? And Joe said, the ones you're entertaining. And my dad said, I don't place orders for anyone. I don't do that anymore. And Joe said, okay, I'll place the orders. And he hung up. One of the men that were sitting there, one of the three, said, who was that? My dad said, Joe. Then the group told him, this guy in the group told my dad, everything we have, all the old places we have are gone, and we've replaced it with the new. We don't need Joe anymore. So this person said, everything we have, all the old places we have are gone, and we've replaced it with the new. We don't need Joe anymore. Okay, then going to the next dream that I think goes together with the first one. Let me take a drink. This was on October 19th. 2022. All right. This one starts out, there had been a plane crash. There had been a plane crash, and they wanted to interview a witness. The media wanted to interview a witness who saw it. The witness and myself and one other man who was sitting with us for the interview with the TV people. So there were three people waiting for the TV people. The witness, my dad, and another guy. And they all gathered in a room waiting for the TV people to come. The TV personality person showed up, a big TV person, showed up and was waiting for the cameraman to show up. While they were waiting, this TV person briefed the witness what he had saw. The witness told what happened. He had gone in the crashed plane and found a man in the plane alive, and found he was trapped and bleeding. He said, I tried to dislodge him, but it was difficult. Finally, I freed him and drug him out of the plane to safety. The interviewer asked, are you willing to go public with that? No, I don't want to, the witness said. So the TV guy said, we need somebody to interview. And he turned to my dad and he said, you. And so my dad agreed. In the room, there was a metal clothes rack, and my dad was feeling kind of anxious, so he steadied himself with the clothes rack. It was empty, but he was holding on to this clothing rack, and he was thinking what I would say and what he was going to say in the interview, and he was getting a little anxious. Then the cameraman walked in, and he was a big guy, and he shows up, and they get ready, and so my dad straightened up. And they asked, they asked my dad, where is the best places for people to go to watch plane crashes? And my dad said, we have had 2 plane crashes in this area lately. So wherever you are at the time, you need to listen to the engines of the planes. If you hear it sputtering, watch that plane because you're in the right area for crashes. They closed the interview, and the guy with me, that one guy, and the interviewer left. And my dad walked out with the cameraman. And as they were walking, the dream changed, and they were walking down a turn row out in agricultural area, a dirt road at the end of the field, like a turn row where you turn the tractors around when you're plowing. So they were walking down a turn row, and there was a plowed field on the right side, and my dad asked the cameraman, I guess in your job you see a lot of plane crashes. I guess in your job you see a lot of plane crashes. The cameraman said, yes, I do. I see my fair share. Then my dad looked down one of the plowed rows, and in the furrow he saw an old leather football. So he went and picked it up. And my dad said, this is an old football, an old style football. I can't even get my hands around it. My dad couldn't. He wanted, the cameraman wanted him to throw it to him, so my dad kind of did an underhand toss towards him. And the cameraman said, this is old, he said. I know how, do you know how I can tell it's old? Listen to the sound when I punt it. And then he drop kicked it, and it had a deep, low sound, like a thump sound. As a low sound, it resonated when he kicked it. Then they walked some more down the turn row, and my dad looked and saw another football in the furrow, and my dad picked it up, and it was smaller, and it was just a rubber football. And and my dad could put his hands around it, and he said, this one fits me. And he said, here, and the guy said, throw it to me. The cameraman said, throw it. So my dad did, and it was just this beautiful spiral throw. And the guy caught it and tossed it up, then threw it away and said, that is not a football. And that was the end of the dream. Now then, I'm not an expert of dream interpretations, but I think I can discern some things like what's from God and what's not from God. I think these are teachings from God, and I think first and foremost I want to bring attention to the fields. In the first dream, it started out with the person in the lobby saying, how big is the wheat in your area? And then in the second dream, it talked about the football in the field. Both fields are different. There's wheat in the first field, and it's this big. That's where we live. That's now. That's winter wheat. Winter wheat has already been planted and is starting to grow. And it's green all winter, and they graze cows on it and keep it cut. And then in the spring, they take the cows off, and then the heat and the water just lets the the wheat grow and get ripe, and then they harvest it around June. When the wheat is this big, that's now, that's winter. In the second dream, the field was plowed and furrowed, that's spring. So I think that's something to take note of. This is, and my dad said it was like a season. That's what it felt like. That's what those fields meant. This God is telling us, if these are from God, and I think they are, He's telling us we're in this season now. The season is upon us, or is coming in the near future. It's winter. The first dream, I think, has to do with, I'm not sure what all the money exchange has to do with, but I think it has to do with there's a group of people, maybe even the body of Christ, who who are not focused exactly where they need to be focused on Jesus. I think that's the group of dignitaries in the lobby. I think the three figures are the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Spirit, that they are familiar to my dad. And they expected him to know him. I think, I'm not sure about all that money exchange. I know that $4.25, if you add those together, and this is kind of a stretch, that equals 11, which is chaos. I know that 10 can often mean destruction. On the $10 bill is a picture of Alexander Hamilton. He's one of the two men on currency, American currency, that's not a president, but he's the only one that's looking to the left, which I think might be relevant in this dream. And I also think he's the first Treasury Secretary, and on the back of the $10 bill is the picture of the Treasury, the building of the Treasury building. Does that reference a financial imbalance? Possibly. When the register person, there was a $2 bill. Thomas Jefferson is on the $2 bill, and the signing of the Declaration is on the back of it. I think that means the United States. So whatever's going on with these conversations, the hotel is a transitory transition place from point A to point B. That's what hotels mean when you dream. The $2 bill references America. Is there going to be chaos and destruction in America? Possibly. It kind of looks like it. I mean, it feels like we're unraveling. Now then, the three people, the three guests. I think there's a reference to my dad being called in this dream situation. The guy's business that he was, my dad said, I'm not familiar with that. I think that's this dreaming. This is new for us. He's been dreaming for like 2 years, and he's 81. So that's kind of what that reference is. I think, y'all, there's other details in this about the chairs and the folding chairs and the light in the room. All of those are elements of this dream worth noting. But I think one of the biggest things worth noting is that, one, those three people did not, if they represent the Trinity, they did not feel a part of that dignitary. There are people who are calling themselves believers and Christians and are institutional churches that aren't really plugged in and focusing on Christ. I think there's a remnant of people who are experiencing Christ maybe in a more purposeful way. We'll leave it at that. Now then, when the phone rings, it's Joe that's on the phone. And at first, none of us, my mom, dad, and I, this did not dawn on me until 2 days later, or a couple of days later. I literally was crocheting over here on the couch. I was just sitting there crocheting, and all of a sudden, it hit me. Joe is the name of the President of the United States. I thought, does this reference the President of the United States? And he said, here's how that conversation went. Think of it. Like what we've talked about. This guy on the phone named Joe says, I'm in your area and I need you to place orders for all your group. To me, that's kind of a dominating kind of attitude. What do you think? I'm not sure, but that's kind of what I was thinking. And my dad said, what group? And he said, the ones you're entertaining. And my dad said, I don't place orders for anyone. I don't do that anymore. And Joe said, okay, I'll place the orders. So it was kind of an obstinate, prideful response, which is concerning. But what was most concerning to me was this. The group told me everything we have, all the old places we have are gone, and we've replaced it with the new. We don't need Joe anymore. If Joe represents the United States, that's concerning. Now, on the second dream, I think this dream is talking about discerning between what is coming, what is real, what is false, and listening. I think that the cameraman is an angelic being. I think, at first I thought the football was the nuclear football. And it truly, it could be. It could be the idea of the nuclear football being used and a retaliation of something that is not nuclear, which would be the other football. That is not a nuclear retaliation. We're at a very high level of nuclear threat right now. So I thought about that. Between winter and spring, I think we're going to see plane crashes. And there's going to be plane crashes in your area. This calls us to pay attention to what is going on and to listen to the engine of the plane crash. I think there are people who are trying to save the ones that are in the planes crashing. And that's a hard role. I think the clothes rack was holding him up, clothing in Christ. And it was anxious. My dad was anxious about it. But I think the most compelling part of that dream is what happened while they were walking down the turn row. The cameraman can see through the lens. The cameraman can see. This is about seeing and hearing. And by discerning what is real and what is false by what it sounds like. That is what I think that dream has to do with. Now then. Oh man, I gotta hurry. This is a word from God that He's given me. This kind of news, if it has to do with what's coming, and I do believe hard times are here and coming. Y'all, when I saw the president eating ice cream, I was like, I'm at the point with my budget that I choose not to buy ice cream because I need to buy a pound of butter or I need to buy a gallon of milk. So I thought, how nice that you get to go buy your ice cream while a lot of Americans are going, we can't go for ice cream anymore, gang. We got to buy the essentials. That in and of itself, that's what I think these dreams are talking about, as well as it can create anxiety. And this is, I was having anxiety for a while, and I don't struggle with that, but every once in a while I have some anxious moments. And I was talking to God about it, and this is what He said to me. He said, child, why do you choose to spend time in the open fighting when you could come inside the gate and be safe with me? I have walls of protection already built for you. Come inside, child, where I am, nearer to you. Let me protect you. Let me fight your battles. You can trust me. Dwell with me inside the walls of safety I have already built for you. And yet here you are from time to time stepping outside the walls to fight something or do something that truly has already been fought and done for you. Do not invite harder things into your life, by going out to fight by yourself. No, child. Always stay near to me under the palm of my hand. That will always protect you. You see, child, your anxiety is a way of going to battle without me. It's stepping away from me and taking it on yourself by yourself. You are strong and mighty, but children, you always and forever should let me fight your battles. I want you to shelter inside the walls of my compound. Be joyful and happy, for that is where I am. The shadow of my hand covers you. Run inside the gates and stay inside the walls, where it is safe. And I said to God, but hard things happen, Father. How do we run inside? How do we run inside? And he said, by learning never to run outside in the beginning of adversity. You are in the open and vulnerable to attack by the enemy when you run toward the fight. Spend time with me, children. Stop and sit with me. For where I am, there is peace and safety, rest, comfort, love, and laughter, joy, and light. Come inside, my children, and I will protect. For my protection has no boundaries, but envelops all who run towards me. Dwell in the shadow of your Almighty Father. And then I had this vision. I dreamt of, I didn't dream it, but it's like a vision of a castle. And he is the Almighty inside. And sometimes I'm standing outside by myself, and that is anxiety. Anxiety is rooted in fear. And there's nothing more the enemy wants right now than to make us afraid. So we have to have faith, and we have to envision God inside this mighty fortress, and we have to dwell in there with him. Because times are going to get harder. There may be a nuclear attack. There may be a nuclear bomb dropped. Clearly, prices are going sky high, and it's hard for some of us to pay the bills. We sure as heck aren't going to buy an ice cream. So, whatever you do, turn to God and dwell in the shadow, like dwell underneath him, and he will protect you, I promise. And he reminded me of that. There's no need to fear or be choked with anxiety. Just dwell inside and let him fight for you. He will do that. All right. I have more dreams to bring you this week from my dad and my mom. So stay tuned. Stay close to God. This is Gina Lima Charlie. I'm out.